most leaders who have been through ups and downs, right, will tell you that they recognize that the ups are easy, that everybody's making money, it's great. When things go south, that's really where you learn a lot and test your mettle and find ways to be super productive and super efficient to survive. I think that's where it's fascinating to me and really can help companies drive growth going forward.
And welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators podcast. This is your destination to expand your capacities in all things having to do with keynote speaking, event production, event marketing, and just generally to help you improve any area of your life professionally or personally. Our guest today is Andrew Busch. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Seth, thanks for having me on. There's so much going on in this world. I hope we can all get it in today.
Yeah, let's get right into it. Let's get this candle lit. What we're going to talk about are economic trends, how all businesses of all sizes can improve on them. We're going to look on emerging economic trends and what the short and mid and longer term future holds for all sorts of businesses, including event professionals. So Andrew, right into the deep end. What trends are you seeing out there that businesses and meeting professionals should focus on to stay competitive?
Yeah. So just a little context for your audience, one of the things that I do that's really unusual is I act as a one-day consultant for all of our clients, in that sense that we walk every client through what we call our future growth opportunities process. And we ask them a series of questions to really inform us about their business. And so we'll take that and that'll jumpstart our research, which we do a deep dive into. What does that mean for your audience? Well, basically it means that I talk to the highest levels of people in many different sectors of the economy, which is really fun because I'm not guessing as to what's going on in the world. I'm hearing it directly from my clients. And then we're extending that and doing deeper research. So we show some of that research at andrewbusch.com. That's all for free. It's up on the website. But when we're talking about trends that are out there, top of mind, for most people is what's going on with interest rates, and to the extent what's going on with inflation, what's going on with the economy, how's that performing, what's happening in housing, wide range of topics that fit into that economic component. And really what we're seeing right now is that we've been through a period where the Fed didn't act aggressively on interest rates. It held its, off at keeping interest rates at zero, and then it dramatically shifted gears, raised rates 525 basis points in 14 months and kept them there for about 14 months. Now inflation's come down significantly. They're seeing the economy somewhat slow, not slow dramatically. We're still running at about 2.5% GDP for the third quarter in the US. And the Fed's decided, hey, we're on target for reaching our 2% inflation target. Let's start to cut interest rates. But I want to caution people, this is not going to be an aggressive rate cutting cycle that we just saw under COVID. As a matter of fact, I will make a safe guess or a safe prediction that it's highly unlikely. My probability of this occurring is less than 20% that we'll ever see 0% interest rates again. I mean, the world would really have to fall apart to get to that point. So in other words, if you're looking at interest rates, you're not going to see 3% mortgages again. You'll be lucky to see maybe a 5%, maybe sometime in the next year. But that's what that's what I'm telling people is like, look, interest rates are going to continue to come up, but not by a whole lot. So that's my overall, just from the economy standpoint, point of view. We're seeing the job market open up a little bit. We're seeing the number of job openings in the United States start to kind of stabilize close by where we were previously, prior to the outbreak of COVID. So there's some normalization that's going on in the economy. And I can do a deeper talk about that if you want, but that's basically the big overview.
I think the macro and all these cold numbers, you can prove and make a case as the economist that you are, that things are improving, things are going in the right direction. There's a lot of encouraging data. But down in the granular, I'm thinking of meeting professionals that have big food and beverage bills, big transportation bills, big hotel bills that whether whether the source of that is a spike from the supply chain that's still have remnants of it, post COVID, whatever you want to call it. It's tough to reconcile because I'm of both minds. I feel I'm optimist. I'm have a positive outlook. I try to pay attention as best I could. I'm not an economist like you, but then I also do, go to the grocery store, go to the gas pump, and all the other things. I have kids, the healthcare and everything. How do you kind of reconcile that for people and frame that up so that, we have a better understanding and can leverage that understanding?
Sure. Well, it drives me crazy when you see people talk about inflation on CNBC or Bloomberg and they're like, oh, it's coming off. Life's great. Don't get me wrong. Like the biggest problem that we have in this country right now, and you see it in all the consumer sentiment surveys, they're all pretty negative considering that we're growing. The problem has been that the price of things have gone from here to way up here. Now, that's the problem. They have not come off significantly. We're starting to see like used car prices, new car prices come down. Certain items at the grocery store, like chickens, come down significantly. But overall, like if inflation's slowing, just means the rate of increasing prices is slowing. It doesn't mean we've reverted way back down. And that hurts a lot of low income, middle income consumers for sure. On oil, on energy, on the other side of things, so gasoline prices are coming down for sure. Oil prices have come down, but they've spiked, a year ago, from 2022 when we had the Ukraine war. So that's starting to come off a little bit. The place where I don't see prices really are going to come off at all, and everybody should get ready for this, is the price of electricity. That's going to stay high going forward. And there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of it has to do with data centers, but those prices are going to stay up. So when we're looking at things and talking about earnings of people, like average hourly earnings, right? So if we're looking at hotels, it's mainly about the people that are working there. And we're super happy to have meetings and things like that. But it's expensive. The labor costs you more money now than it did back prior to COVID. And so there's a lot of things like that are not just going to ease dramatically because the Fed waves this magic wand of raising rates and then starts to cut them. That isn't the way this works. So you have to build that in to your pricing models. And it's not easy because then there's a lot of pressure on meeting planners, but there's pressures across the entire economy to do this, to figure out how to do more with less. And that's the challenge for everybody.
And there's pressure to make the case, the value, and in simplest terms, is it worth it? Is it worth it to have these huge events, these huge conferences? I'm of the thinking it is, not just because I'm in the business. I think that I've seen this re-encountering of people in events which have shifted a little bit. There's less on the agenda. There's more free time. There's more time to connect face to face. The value of face to face meetings is just, to me, it's almost immeasurable. I think there are event professionals that do measure it, and how much business is developed out of a meeting or a conference. But the pressure is there. I want to shift gears a little bit. You're in touch with, when you do this consulting and you do this research to prepare and really tailor your presentations, you're dealing with a lot of forward-thinking leaders. What do you see that they're doing to navigate the uncertainty? What they're doing to capitalize on these trends that you're bringing forth?
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do across the board in the United States and elsewhere in the world is they're trying to get some context for the chaos that's going on right now and trying to understand that. And what I always tell people is like, it's really important to do that. Why? Because if you don't know where you've been, you certainly can't figure out where you are, and you'll never see where you're going. So it's important to understand what happened during COVID. I mean, I know people don't like to go back to that, but it's really important to understand the flow of money that occurred in the United States and still is occurring in the United States, and how that's impacting businesses overall, because it's dramatically changed the structure of the economy, in the sense that, when we shut things down, and made people stay at home, we changed consumer spending patterns, right? Around the world, like most of the economies are based on consumer spending. In China, it's 35%. In the EU, it's about 52%. In India, it's about 60%. And here in the United States, it's about 70%. And of that 70%, about 70% is spent on services and about 30% is spent on goods. But if you can't go to a bar, if you can't go to a restaurant, if you can't take vacation, the spending on services starts to go down. And if you're forced to stay at home, right, you need a new chair, you need a new desk, Junior needs a new iPad, your spending on goods started to go up. And just a simple shift of 5% blew up the global supply chain. But it also hit home too, to many people outside of China. It's like, oh my gosh, we're really dependent on that country for a lot of manufactured goods that are very important. So people have done a rethink about, well, we need to have maybe China plus one as far as suppliers go. And maybe we need to take advantage of the Chips and Science Act or the Bipartisan Infrastructure Plan or the Inflation Reduction Act. There's a lot of goodies that are in there to encourage manufacturers to move back to the United States. And so there's been that. So people are figuring out like, okay, the world shifted significantly from COVID. Money is still influencing where these opportunities are going. But we've also discovered we lost a lot of workers. Not only did 1 million people die, but a lot of people retired as well. We lost a lot of people out of the workforce. So why does that matter for companies? Because now talent management is so central to what's going on. In other words, how do you get new workers? And then if you do get them, how do you get them up to the speed at which you need them to contribute to your business? So this is to some extent, which is pushing everybody to be more efficient and to be more productive. And what I always like to point out is like, if you've ever worked with a consultant or a PE firm, first thing I tell people is like, my condolences, because they're usually a pain in the butt. But they always talk about crazy things like animals. And I'm not kidding. They talk about alligators. Why do they talk about alligators? Because what they're trying to do, I'll demonstrate, is there's the alligator's mouth. What they're trying to do is increase revenues and drop expenses. Well, how do you do that? Well, to drop expenses, you got to find a way to make your people more productive, don't you? Because then you can have the same amount of workers producing more. Well, what's the best way to do that? Training them. And what's the best way to train them is to figure out how to use artificial intelligence or large language models. And so that's what I spend a lot of time talking to my clients about, is kind of walking them through this progression of how we got to where we're at, why that demand for the increase in teaching and learning to your workers to make them more productive, that's going to be the key to being more productive overall. And as Mark Benioff said, the head of Salesforce, he said every single one of their clients is trying to utilize AI right now. And that gives you an idea of the breadth of what's happening in that space. So that's the way that the people at the top of the pyramid are looking at things. And that goes down through through every level, really, of an organization. People have not figured it out yet. It's taken it's going to take some time, and there's hurdles to this. If you're highly regulated, some regulators don't like you using the cloud as an example. Other people, it's a question of how do you have that conversation across all those different silos that are within a firm that you can get data from, from sales to production to HR. I mean, everybody needs to be able to create data, catalog it, index it, to make it worthwhile to feed into an AI model where it can tell you something interesting about your business. So it broadly speaking, that's what I'm seeing that I think is just really exciting about what's happening here in the United States and in other countries too. The EU is doing similar things.
It is super exciting, and I'm listening with bated breath, or whatever the metaphor is, for my ears, open ears or peaked ears. For our listeners and subscribers, thanks for joining us. And if you like what we're discussing, make sure you subscribe, click on the notification bell, and stay up to date on future trends and these really important topics. Andrew, you talked a lot about, the services versus goods. And, you deal with the entire economy, which is to say all industries, all professions. And you have your eyes, it's what you do, what you need to do to be who you are. In the events industry, like every other part of the economy, a key key one or two or three hires can make such a difference. So you're talking about making the workforce more efficient to have that part of the bottom, the bottom jaw of the alligator go down, and they thus impacting revenues or what's coming in go up. That mindset, which I know you've come across, the skills we need to have to remain relevant in the rapidly changing marketplace. You kind of alluded to that earlier, but round it out here, because I know you pointed to it, but not as specifically. The chaos to confidence mindset for success, which it sounds like you're kind of touching on here. The leaders, the ones that are looking at large language models and ChatGPT or artificial intelligence, Mark Benioff, and across all industries. Talk a little bit about that, because you strike me as the kind of person that has your thumb or your finger on the pulse of what successful organizations are doing with that chaos, the confidence kind of mindset. There's a question in there somewhere. Help me out.
Well, there's a lot going on in this world, right? And so I think most leaders who have been through ups and downs, right, will tell you that they recognize that the ups are easy, that everybody's making money. It's great. When things go south, that's really where you learn a lot and test your mettle and find ways to be super productive and super efficient to survive. Now, I'm not saying we're going to go into a recession or anything like that, but these are challenging times. In the sense of the labor shortage is really interesting to me. You're losing skilled workers in every industry because there's a lot of baby boomers that are in their retirement age between 55 and 65. These are highly skilled workers who've been at it for a long time. Now, maybe they don't have all of the technological skills that a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old had, but they know how things work. You're thinking about municipal water workers who know how the machines work, how the flows of water work. Think about line workers for electricity, for trestles.
HVAC is huge.
Trades, plumbing, electricity, and those things. I mean, there's huge opportunities in those spaces for young people to go into. And I have these conversations all the time because there's such a dearth of workers in those spaces. Let me give an example of what I'm talking about. And I'll tie this into data centers and the Chips and Science Act. So out in Boise, and I did a talk for them, the city of Boise and the real estate area. In Boise, they're getting I believe it's a Micron chip factory that's going in there. Now that money, subsidized money from the Chips and Science Act, we're encouraging companies to build fabrication plants here in the United States. Micron's going to build one outside of Boise or around Boise. Down the road in Kuna, Meta is putting a data center in there, right? These two projects are going to be going on simultaneously. The data center can get up and running probably 18 months to 2 years, right? The chip plant takes about 4 to 5 years. In that process, those two projects will need 2,000 electricians. The state of Idaho has 1,200. And now you can understand the scope of the problem that's occurring across the country in trades. So that is interesting to me. That creates a competition for those workers. And so for companies, you really have to start to think like, okay, if I want to hire people in AI, I mean, you're at the very, very peak of expensive human beings because there are just very few of them. And there's very few that are available to come work and design something for you. So you're going to have to figure out a way to navigate that. Some of that is training your people by sending them to conferences. And I think that's a great way of doing that so they can interact. Some of it is really making technology at the forefront of your business plan as far as what you're doing. It could be sales, it could be the structure of the company, whatever. Now more than ever, the CTO of a company is sitting on either the board of directors or sitting in on the board of directors meetings, or they're a part of the executive team for sure. And at the highest levels of companies because it's so integral into what they're doing. So I guess broadly speaking, if I'm answering the correct question, I think that's where it's fascinating to me about how all of these disparate things that are going on that seem not connected are intimately connected. and really can help companies drive growth going forward.
To me, you did answer the question. Thank you. I mean, I'll try to bring it down to my, I'm a pretty pedestrian thinker, but there's a lot of opportunity out there. Chaos is constant, and the mindset that's required is to inform yourself, not be in a silo, sit on a board, go to other parts of your organization to
But even more
understand what the
so,
need.
just play around with the thing. Get in
Yeah,
there, start type it away, put a document in, see if it can
yeah,
summarize it for you. Do some research. Really, you got to educate your own self. For people who are older, I'll say plus 50. I mean, it's fun to do, and this is hey, if you want to stay relevant, like
yeah,
start playing with this stuff, right? Because it's
yeah,
first off, the blast is crazy. And the second thing I'll just say really quickly is like you cannot believe how much better these things are just over 2 years. Like OpenAI has done with their latest iteration, I think they call it O1. It's not even 4.0. This is a new model that can do inference. Like it's super impressive on what it can do. So it's well beyond the hallucination stage. And it's incredible how fast things are moving. And it really, the onus is on everybody hearing this to start playing around with this stuff because at some point you're using it in your CRM, you're using it on your phone, but like it's fun to play with. You can design pictures, you can create music.
yeah,
And
yeah.
one more thing to blow people away, sorry, I'm just kind of going off on a tangent,
No,
is
bring it on.
if you haven't gone and looked at Sora, Sora videos, just type that into Google or whatever source you use. You will be blown away what a prompt can create on video. It's
Wow.
it's
Okay.
astonishing. It looks like a movie, like and not just kind of dorky looking things. Like it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Which is one of the reasons why there's like worries in Hollywood about what this means for their business, right? The changes that are occurring there. And they had a strike a year or so ago talking about content and IP, intellectual
That's
property,
right.
for reasons. But like if you're a director, you can sit there and go, let me try a different background. I don't like that light up in the corner, reduce it down by 20%. That's you can place people anywhere in the world, top of Mount Everest, whatever you want to do
Yeah.
with green screening. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. And, maybe down the road, you don't even need the actors. You could just use their voices or whatever. I mean, some of this stuff is scary for sure. But right
It
now,
is.
we're
And
so far away from like getting rid of people. It's think of it as a teammate that you're using to make yourself better.
yeah. I've been using the word teammate, collaborator. Might
Yeah.
it's more syllables, but I do, for our listeners out there, I'm curious what skills you've learned in the past year to advance your career. Go ahead in the comments and share that with us. We'd love to learn, more about what you're doing. To your point, Andrew, I have a hand drawn with a Sharpie on a white piece of printer paper, 8.5 by 11, a diagram that I use to help me kind of get clarity around some of my activity in marketing and branding. Okay. I took a photo of it, turned it into a JPEG. I uploaded it. I uploaded a little spreadsheet, not a ton of columns, some data of industries where we've placed speakers, specific
Mhm.
industries, how many, and over a couple of years. And I put some data on numbers of sales and stuff like that. I put in a very short document, maybe 300 words, that was a little bit about our existing messaging and some of our frequency and volume of outbound activity. And I prompted it. I won't get into all the detail of it. First of all, it read my handwritten diagram. Okay. It took the most basic 101 level Excel and it put something together. Was it mind blowing? Pretty close. I'm a hard grader. Did I love 100% of it? No. Upwards 90%, yes. Did I then take the language and polish it off for my own needs and my own way of seeing it? Yes. So here's my question. I'm going to land this plane. That was predictive, informative. Yet I ultimately have to make the judge on what I want to utilize and deploy.
Right.
How do you strike that balance on when you're creating context for business leaders, event planners, event marketers, event professionals to begin to play with, learn about it, leverage it, and then how they take the essential human part of them and then deploy it? Again, there's a question in there somewhere. Help me out.
Yeah. So I think the thing is what's fun about it is that you can ask it for, let's do something really basic, like an email that you're sending somebody, right? Write an email that's, covers 3 points for you. Well, you pull that, you can give it a lot of different variations of it, but you want your own voice in there, right? This is what
Right.
we always talk, especially in marketing. You want your own voice. How does Andy Busch speak? How does he sound? Like, what do I like to, I like to play a little bit with people. I like to be very colloquial in the way that I write emails. They're not formal. I want people to understand that, like, look, I'm at your level. Like, whatever level that is, I'm at that level. I'll
Right.
be able to speak to whatever audience you want me to speak to, whether it's forklift operators in North Carolina or whether it's, the top clients for Baker Hughes. It doesn't matter to me, right? It's like I can speak at any level. But that's what I think is fun. Like, and that's the human element. Like, it will any AI is not going to be able to tell you, like, hey, here's where the pot of gold is buried to some extent, right? Where you need to market specifically to. Maybe if you provide enough data on where trends are going on, data that you have on the bookings that you're doing, right? And then the AI can probably come up with a projection of where it sees things going in the future. But you still have to say to yourself, like, hey, I got to do my own homework. Where am I seeing demand for clients? Like,
Exactly.
what are they asking for? And who are the people that are speaking on this topic? Who are the people that are writing research on it? I kind of laugh about people. I shouldn't make fun of people, but there's a lot of people that write books on AI, and it's kind of hilarious to me because it's changing so fast. Like, it's like as soon as you've done writing it, it's pretty much worthless. We're going back, like, we did a whole series of AI in agriculture and energy in like 5 different areas, and we're basically going back and redoing all of that with a new series because things have changed so rapidly in a year. But I guess that's the point here. It's just like, you got to get your hands dirty. You got to play around with it. You can make it in your own voice, but you do have definitely have a human element to it because people are going to be listening to this have had experiences, right? They know and are hearing from their clients. Their clients are basically driving where they need to start looking, but you also have to be forward thinking. You also have to give, you have to be forward thinking in the sense of helping your clients see beyond just their day to day. And that's
Right.
really where, like, people like myself can really help them because we look at things that are not just happening today, but really, 3, 5, 10 years down the road. We're looking and trying to figure out how the world's going to change over that time frame. And even for people like me, I get this question all the time, like, how do you do what you do? That's so much information. How are you staying on top of things? I'm like, look, I've been at this for a long time and I have filters of a lot of information that are coming in. I have an unfair advantage over most people because I talk to the top people in the organization. So I'm getting daily updates on what their businesses are like. But I have a wealth of experience. And so when I start looking into the future, right, and I start trying to envision what that looks like, at least I have a framework of how the world works,
That's right.
that is driving this, confidence from the chaos that's going on, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, speakers have, that's what they lean on. They have, decades of experience where they're distilling the finest, most impactful transformational ideas and points that are tailored for each audience. So it's like a physician that's been at it for a long time. You're getting their entire breadth of, their lifetime of experience and work. So that it's not an unfair advantage, it's an earned advantage. Andrew, we're at the end of our conversation here. I just want to thank you. I could go on and on. This is such a, I use this phrase a lot, but this is really a rich conversation. And we just thank you for being with us. We also thank our audience for staying with us on this episode and learning with us along the way. And if you're excited about future trends like we discussed in this episode, whether they're economic or business, you can go ahead and check out the other great interviews we've done and share it with whoever you think would be appreciative of it so we can all get smarter for it. So Andrew, thank you. Thank you for the work you do all over the world, all over every industry. And just thank you for making time out of your day to be with us.
No problem, Seth. This has been a lot of fun.
All right. And to our listeners, thanks again. We'll see you next time.